It's the 25th of September, 1066. Close to York at a river crossing called Stamford Bridge, the recently crowned English King Harold Godwinson had just defeated a large Viking army, led by the Norwegian Harold Hardrada. The English had managed to surprise the Norwegians, who believed Harold's army still remained down in the south of England. The fight was decisive and bloody. Harold Hardrada and Tostig Godwinson, the king's brother, were both killed on the battlefield. Of the hundreds of ships that carried the Viking invasion force from Norway, only a handful ever returned home. England had survived a northern storm, but its defenders were elated, depleted, and far from the southern coast, where the real risk to Harold's crown lay. While Harold revelled in victory at York, the weather in the English Channel had changed at last. An ominous threat from the south was about to become a reality which would change the face of England forever. William's army, months in the making, slipped from Saint-Valery and crossed the Channel. He landed at Pevensey and Hastings, threw up wooden forts, unloaded horses, and began the work of provocation, burning farms, seizing food, pulling the English south into a fight of his choosing. News galloped to London. Harold faced a choice no king envies: wait to gather a larger army and risk seeing the south laid to waste, or move quickly with the corps of his professionals and any others that could be pushed into service. He chose speed. After only a brief pause in the capital, he marched into Sussex with his army. Please note that although a lot is known around parts of the Battle of Hastings, some events that took place are only possible to work out from piecing together the evidence as best as we can. The following account of the battle is as much as possible what is believed to have taken place that day, using evidence from various sources. By the 13th of October, Harold reached the hills north of Hastings, near the village of Battle. He chose a defensive position along the ridge of Senlac Hill, commanding the high ground. His shield wall would force the Normans to attack uphill. William, encamped at Hastings, had no intention of retreating. For him, there was no going back. The English crown, and his very survival, depended on victory. With that, he left Hastings and marched towards Harold's encamped army. As the armies positioned themselves, the land itself shaped the fight as much as the men who fought it. To the north and west, thick woodland and rolling ground hemmed the English line. These woods limited movement, but they also protected Harold's flanks from a wide sweep. At the centre stood Senlac Hill, a long ridge running east to west. Here, King Harold Godwinson formed his shield wall along the crest. The slope beneath him was steep, forcing any attacker to fight uphill against locked shields and heavy axes. To the south, open ground spread out below the ridge. This is where William arrayed his archers, infantry, and mailed cavalry, ample space to launch repeated assaults. To the east, small streams and patches of marsh made the terrain awkward and uneven. Crossing there risked disorder, especially for horses. In effect, the battlefield formed a funnel. Harold held the narrow ridgetop. William attacked from the wider lower ground. The English advantage was height and cohesion. The Norman advantage was mobility, archers to soften the line, cavalry to exploit any gap. Harold's best hope was simple: hold the ridge until nightfall and force a withdrawal. William, denied a quick breakthrough by the slope, needed craft and endurance. Feigned retreats, renewed charges, and arrows loosed high to arc over the shields. On this day, the land was not a backdrop. It was the deciding instrument of war, shaping tactics, testing discipline, and, in the end, helping to determine the fate of England. King Harold Godwinson's men, weary from their long marches and recent victories, formed a solid shield wall along the crest of the hill. At its core stood his housecarls, professional warriors clad in mail, their great axes glinting in the morning light. Behind them, the fyrd, the farmers and freemen of England, packed tightly into the line. Below them, on the open ground, Duke William of Normandy arrayed his host. Archers in the front, infantry behind, and the heavy cavalry, the mailed knights of Normandy, Brittany and Flanders, waiting for the signal to charge. The battle opened with a storm of arrows. William's archers loosed their shafts into the sky, but most fell harmlessly against the English shields or clattered to the ground. Next came the infantry, surging uphill, shouting in French, Breton, and Flemish tongues. They smashed into the English line, but the shield wall did not yield. Then came the Norman knights, thundering forward on horseback. They charged the English wall again and again, but the hill was steep, the shields unbroken. Horses reared, riders were dragged from their saddles, and still the English line stood firm. For hours the battle hung in deadlock. But then, on William's left flank, the Bretons began to waver. Some broke and fled down the hill. Believing victory was at hand, groups of English ferdmen broke formation and gave chase. It was a fatal mistake. The Bretons turned suddenly, and Norman cavalry wheeled around to slaughter the scattered pursuers. William had discovered a new tactic, the feigned retreat. He would repeat it throughout the day, each time thinning the English ranks. At one point, rumours swept through the Norman host that Duke William himself had been killed. But the Duke rode to the front, tore off his helmet, and cried out that he still lived. His men, heartened, pressed the attack with renewed fury. By afternoon, the English shield wall was fraying. The long hours of combat, the constant rain of arrows, and the relentless cavalry charges had begun to take their toll. In the thick of the fighting, Harold's brothers, Gurth and Leofwine, fell, leaving the king increasingly isolated. Still, the housecarls fought on, axes biting through mail and shield alike. The English position was grim, but not yet broken. Then William made his final move. He ordered his archers to angle their bows higher, sending arrows raining down in deadly arcs over the shields. One shaft struck King Harold himself. Some say it pierced his eye, others that Norman knights cut him down in the melee that followed. But with Harold dead, the spirit of the English army collapsed. As the sun set, the last of Harold's loyal housecarls made their final stand around their fallen king. They fought to the death, refusing to yield. The rest of the fyrd fled into the woods and fields of Sussex, leaving the Normans in command of the field. Hastings decided a day, but it did not yet win a kingdom. In the weeks after the battle, William starts fortifying Hastings, then pushing to Dover and Canterbury. London is too strong for a frontal assault. He feints south of London and swings west, crossing the Thames at Wallingford. One by one, England's leading men bend the knee at Berkhamsted. On the 25th of December, 1066, under the new vaults of Westminster Abbey, William is crowned king. Outside, Norman guards mistake the acclamations for a riot and set houses ablaze, an omen of the uneasy peace to come.